Hello there. Welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm so glad you're here tonight for a fun cover layout, an outdoorsy theme with a locomotion vibe. And we are using the May-June season mix-ins. These season mix-ins are a bridge product, meaning they are a close to my heart designed paper pack purchased and sold by Stampin' Up. And at the time of this video, still available on my Stampin' Up website. A variety of patterns, two-sided, so you get two sides of 6 sheets of paper, and the coordinating colors are acorn black, French vanilla, limeade, pine, pumpkin, and sundance. And these are designed to coordinate with other things, or they could also be a standalone paper pack that you could do so many things with. And I love the pine cross dot. Now you're seeing a sneak peek here of the greatest adventure. Love the steam engine and all the sentiments. And this is an upcoming product that will be dropped on July 3rd that is part of a bunch of online exclusives that will be seen on that day and available through the rest of July. Now there's also another bridge product drop on that day. So there's an enormous product drop on that day, and this was one of them. And I thought right away about a trip we took to the Black Hills to see the 1880 train. I took my grandkids up there, and the 1880 train was between Hill City and Keystone, South Dakota, originally to help with both mining and the timber industry. And then eventually it hauled supplies to the Mount Rushmore to get Mount Rushmore built. And all I could really think about was the black stripe in the season mix-ins. And I felt that had this great railroady vibe. And there were other outdoorsy themes because, of course, the Black Hills has great trees and hills. So I found this fun circular railroad track on the Cricut, and I do have the hashtag M number, search number, and I'll link that in the description so that you can find it. I will also link the design space file in there because it's a great little round railroad track, and I sort of envision maybe the black and white stripe behind the railroad tracks, maybe the pine behind the railroad tracks, but I sort of envision maybe gutting out that background black and white stripe from the season mix-ins, and then maybe reusing the middle of that and putting that middle behind the railroad track, and then adding a transition piece so there's a different offset color in the back. And so it's kind of hard for me to decide. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do here yet, but I somehow want to use the black and white stripe. It just screams railroad and vintagey vibe. So I've gone ahead and I've cut the black cardstock to 10 3/4 by 10 3/4. I've gutted that frame by cutting 1 inch all the way around of the black and white stripe. And then I've cut the pine pattern paper piece to 10.5 by 10.5. Now I really want to put something behind the railroad tracks. And I kind of feel like I could even journal on the stripes, but there's something about the vintage train that makes me feel wood grain. And I thought, what about if I put the wood grain around the outer part of the track, and then the interior of the track could actually be a different color, or it could be the wood grain as well. So I'm not sure. I think I'll start by adding that wood grain to the outer part of the circle and then adding that stripe to the inner part. So all I did is lay it on the back and fussy cut around, and you can cut the interior of the wood grain out as well if you want to. And then that way you won't use so much of your pattern paper. And I don't know why, but I love the look of that with the wood grain on the track and then the stripes in the middle. So now I'm trying to decide, do I want to line up the stripes from the back of the frame with the stripes in the circle? And I definitely do, so your eye doesn't catch and hook on that. You want it so that it will flow all the way across. Plus it will work great for journaling then, I'm thinking. And so I do have an 1/8 inch white frame around my 4 by 6 photo, and then another black that is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 around the photo. I've cut off a couple of the zip or branding strips on my seasoned mix-ins. I love the black dot and the checkered acorn there, and I think that'll help have a nice little transition on the bottom so it isn't just all green, so that there's a little bit of that black and that acorn in it. There is a lot of green and there's a little bit of brown in the trees. There's black in the train. There's actually a tiny little bit of the red or the burgundy in there, and I love that I caught the steam coming out of the locomotive. So this is a cling stamp. So I've gone ahead and stamped the train actually several times on very vanilla cardstock. Now, because this was close to my heart made, I'm going to go ahead and dirty that up with a little bit of Acorn ink. Now, if you're using Stampin' Up! Colors, pecan pie would be great. It's a little darker than what I would normally use for just, roughing up and giving the vintage edge. I usually would use toffee, which is a little lighter than acorn, but because acorn is a coordinating color in this pack, it actually went perfect, and then it really stands out later when I do a little bit more inking, and it really draws out the colors of the locomotive. Now I need some bits, right? And I'm just using the stamp set, but I'm going to pull out the In the Grove stamp and die set. So this is actually two separate sets. So you have the dies on the left, which is you can purchase separately, and you have the cling stamp on the right, and those are sold separately, but they're actually still for sale just today. Today is June 30th, and they are still for sale 10% off on the shop site for bundles when you bundle those together. And this is just a great mountain theme. It has trees, it has hills, it has a little grass, it even has a fox. And I love this where it makes this little pine tree edge. Now you could make that piece long to make a journaling piece out of it and have the pine trees coming out the top, or you could cut them off as like a little bit of an embellishment. So I did one mountainscape in dark pine, one mountainscape in light pine, and then I cut out the other mountains in black, and then I used pine again for that longer piece, and then I used acorn for the trees, and I did a few of those trees in light acorn, a few of those trees in dark acorn, and I stamped all of those in either Memento or Intense Black ink, depending on if you're using Stampin' Up! Or Close to My Heart. I'm going to dirty those edges up and make them look a little rustic, a little woodland, and I love how that acorn draws the look of the Black Hills in it. So unfortunately, the Black Hills had some pine beetle damage, and so there is a lot of rust colored pine still. It has been what do you want to say, they have went to clean up the forest. They've done replanting over many years, and they have tried to eradicate the pine beetle, but there's still that hint of that rusty color in the Black Hills. So you've got really rich deep black mountains, green mountains, you have really green pine trees, and then you have a lot of that rusty color as well all throughout the Black Hills. So I thought it was perfect to use the acorn, and I really see just layering these pieces, and I kind of wanted a locomotive to be coming out of the hills. And we do in the Black Hills, especially around like Custer State Park and around in there are tunnels, there are train tracks and train bridges, there are trees. And I think it is so cool to think about this 1880 train from the Central Railroad that really was the primary source of timber, hauling timber, and also the industry in terms of supplies and taking supplies and things up to Mount Rushmore to get Mount Rushmore completed. And there's a whole history there. I think Burlington was one of the railroads. There's some other railroads that were, or the company that was involved there. And it's a great, like about a 1-hour train ride through the Black Hills. You get on the 1880 train and you ride it through from Hill City to Keystone. And then once you get kind of out in the middle of nowhere, they have a train museum. They have a few little historic things, a few little touristy things, but it's a wonderful little thing that it doesn't take all day. You can do it 2 or 3 hours. You can stay there all day and have a picnic if you want to once you're there. And it's just a wonderful thing to do with the grandkids. And we made a day of it and had a wonderful time just riding around and riding the train. And it was a beautiful day with a breeze. The train cars have some open seating so that you're out in the breeze. You can smell the pine. It's really, really nice. But you could also use this wonderful stamp set for masculine. Like, how many times do we need masculine pages, masculine cards? And I love the vibe of this. You could even use it for juvenile if you wanted to do Thomas the Train or other trains, or just children that love train sets or different train. We have ridden so many trains at so many different attractions, zoos and other things that this would work for as well, just to be something iconic. But I love the vintagey outdoor vibe of this one. And all I'm doing is adding some foam tape to a couple pieces here, and I'm building a scene. I love to layer a scene where you just kind of layer and toggle and layer and toggle. And then I think I can have the train coming right out of those black hills right there, right out of those hills. And then it's a single photo, which I don't often do, but I actually have quite a few other photos from this day or this weekend to scrap, and they're all 2-page. There's enough photos for each thing that they're all 2-page. And you know how when you're starting the beginning of an album and it's a blank at the front and you only have 2-page layouts and you need a single. Sometimes you need a single for the cover at the very beginning, and then you need a single for the finale in the back page. And so this was just going to be this single photo that is introducing this weekend trip that we took to the Black Hills. And so I don't live that far from the Black Hills. I would say I was maybe 2 and almost 3 hours, 2 3/4 hours away from where we had to board the train. And they actually do Christmas things with this train as well. You can take little Christmas rides, and of course you're going to bundle up, and they have hot cocoa, or they have wineries in the Black Hills where you could have a wine train ride, just depending on if you're doing it with the family or if you're wanting a little romantic train ride with your partner. And it's just a wonderful thing. Like the air, there's nothing like the air there. So I'm fussing and fussing because I'm just trying to build the scene. And so I'm layering all those same pieces that we talked about, and I'm hoping to tuck this photo under and then do a little bit of journaling and embellishing. I do decide to do a little bit of stamping with the In the Grove stamp set. Or do I use, no, I actually pull in yet another stamp set and to do a little bit of texture in the background. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So now I'm going to add just a few little trees, or I see myself adding a few little trees. Again, when we're riding the train, that's all we're seeing is hills and trees. There's some open areas, and there's actually, I think, a little farm or two nestled in between the trees that's just rustic and really cool to see. So you actually do see a few little fields in there with some hay bales, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful little train ride. So I'm sort of getting happy with that, and I'm actually bringing in Of Art and Texture. Of Art and Texture is, if it isn't already, it's going to be super popular. It is a stamp set that just has all kinds of fun backgrounds. Now, we've had background stamps in the past, but I love how this one does have splotches, but it also has a stamp in there that really, really reminds me of shadows of hills. And so I was thinking in the Black Hills, you have shadows, like black shadows of hills, and then in the front you see like different tones of greens. And I thought, why not stamp with the Of Art and Texture stamp that sort of looks like the background hills in the background. I also see Of Art and Texture used for like BMX bike riding, of like teenage splatters in the back, scenery stamps, stamps that could be behind vintage words. Like, there's just really, really so many uses for a texture stamp. I mean, you can totally use those for just about anything to just add color and texture and interest to the back of every page. So now I'm just kind of doing a little redneck measurement here. I'm not even using a ruler, and I should have, because I end up stamping twice, but it's okay because it just gives gives it a little bit more of a background. So I get a little bit too low. And so when I put my mountain scene and my tree scene on there, it's a little too low to show the texture stamp in the back. So I actually come back in and I go up a little higher, but the duplicate stamping in there doesn't bother me a bit. I actually love it because the layers of the hills and the black hills are they're very, they're all over the place. And the shadows, depending on what way the sun is coming out, you'll see different layers. It's just all different layers of beauty, the beautiful, beautiful black hills. So this train was actually also used for mining. So the Black Hills is famous for mines. And so I think they started out with both mining and timber. And then again, as I said, worked with it, had it for supplies for the Black Hill, or for the Mount Rushmore. Yes, for Mount Rushmore. So often when we have company, we have people that want to go up into the Black Hills and they want to hike. They want to see some of the historic monuments and do a lot of the Black Hills things. And honestly, aside from, we do quite a bit of hiking up there and sometimes camping, but to just go up and see the historic monuments, we typically only do that when company comes and wants to see that. So I loved this weekend taking the grandkids. You forget, because like I always did all of this stuff with older grandchildren. And then it's like you forget that the younger grandchildren have never had an opportunity to do that with you. So I love taking day trips with the different ages of grandchildren up so that they can do some of the same adventures I've repeated, like over the generations. Like I did that with my children, then I did it with the older grandchildren. Now I'm doing it with younger grandchildren. And so it's really cool to see the changes and to have those experiences with each generation. So now I'm much happier. I love just that little bit of texture stamp peeking out, and I'm going to do a little journaling there, and then we'll go ahead and add a little bit of trees, and then we're going to find a few other little pieces to add, and we're going to find a title. So something since starting Stampin' Up! Almost 2 months. I've almost been a demonstrator for 2 months, and since starting Stampin' Up!, probably my biggest challenge, I've had so much fun. There's so many amazing products. I've definitely used a lot of their dies. I'm in love with a lot of their dies. I'm getting into their stamps slowly, but I've used a lot of their dies because they're large enough for scrapbooking and I absolutely love them. But a struggle has been titles. And so I have to either use a Cricut title. They do have a little bit of ephemera. If I can find a stamp that's big enough to use as a title, I will do that. But I did dig through or muck through the Stampin' Up! Website, and I found this mini alpha stamp. And it was so interesting to me because all the letters are grouped together in 2 dies. So most of the letters come out of 1 die. And at first I was like, that's really weird. Like, why would they do that? Why wouldn't you just pick out the letters that you need? Then when I cut the set of letters out, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so nice. I ran a die through 1 time and got the letters that I needed. And I was like, wow, that's fast. And then I actually put the leftover letters in a little baggie and put them in my storage. So some people do ask about my Bling storage and my standalone die storage. And these are actually envelopes that are from the stamp market. The stamp market has these very sturdy, like not chipboard, but almost like chipboard. And they have a little tab on the top and you can see my standalone dies in there. And I stick a little magnet in there and then they have a protective sheet and it is visual. I can see every die, but I also have the tab for the name and I can also stick the original packaging behind the magnet and I can put a double. So if I want to, I can double another one behind it if I want to. So now I'm looking at the sentiments in the Greatest Adventure stamp set, and I'm thinking I could make some kind of a sentiment there. So I made the banners out of the nested essential dies, which you've seen me use in many of my videos as of late, because I love them and they're versatile and they're all stitched and you get all the sizes and they nest inside of each other. So I made 3 different banners out of the nested essential dies with some of the pattern paper, little scraps of the pattern paper from from the season mix-ins. And now I want to experiment with a sentiment that comes in the Greatest Adventure stamp set. So what I'm doing is I'm masking off part of the sentiment with a little bit of masking tape so that it can say, here's to. But I also said, here's to happiness ahead. Now I did that because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to use it. If I'm going to use the letters from the mini alpha that say happiness ahead, then I kind of wanted the stamped sentiment to say here's to, and then the dies will say happiness ahead. But I went ahead and did them both because I wasn't sure, do I want to say here's to happiness ahead and then the title say happiness ahead, or do I want to say here's to with the stamped piece and then add that to those little alpha dies. I ended up loving the alpha dies, I will admit, because they're small enough that you could use those on cards and use those for a lot of things. You could also say lots of words. Like sometimes when the alphabet dies are so large, you can't really do too many words because then it takes up so much space on your page. So these were small enough that you could use those on cards and small enough that you could actually create quite a few words on there. And then, of course, my favorite is the adhesive backed texture dots. Masculine, outdoorsy, love them. So much texture on them, and I've been using those for everything. They were actually gone for a while, and they're back on the shop site now, and I'm getting happy. I love this outdoorsy themed layout. I love the railroad tracks. I love the trees. I love everything about it, and it's going to make a great opener, and it's going to be a great single page layout for the opener for my scrapbook pages that are for my 1880 Dream themed scrapbook pages. I hope you love it, and I hope you will tune in on July 3rd when we have the drop of the Greatest Adventure stamp set and many other online exclusives, as well as the very last drop of the Close to My Heart Bridge product. I'll be doing a sneak peek here of quite a few of those products real soon, and I hope you'll take a moment to hit subscribe, like, and the notifications bell so you don't miss any more wonderful tutorials here, right here on Snips by Kelly. Thank you so much for watching, and happy scrapping, everyone. Bye-bye.